Welcome to the section about the innovation process and innovation portfolio. Let's start with the horizons. In the first horizon, you typically focus the core business. The ROI is typically growth and profit. Activities and activity metrics is typically involved people, for instance, number of involved innovation champions. The impact that you are interested in measuring is number of IDs that are actually implemented and the profit and the growth based on that. In the second horizon, however, it's about data. The return of investment is data. And you typically have activity metrics like number of IDs, number of experiments, number of prototype or pilots, or maybe number of startups you met with. And impact metrics, what you really would like to achieve is conversion rate. How many of these things that you try out in the second horizon goes into the first horizon? That's the conversion rate. You're typically also very interested in customer satisfaction, which means what's happening when you actually involve customer. And it could also be number of investment in startups. There are, of course, a number of other impact metrics as well, but these are a few of them. What's interesting here is that, as you can see, the input in the first horizon is the second horizon, and the S-curves is actually for the first horizon. There is no S-curves for the second or the third horizon. The third horizon generates insights for the second horizon input to the first horizon, and the first horizon has an S-curve which starts with invention. It grow, mature, decline. And then you need to figure out the next S-curve and the next S-curve and the next S-curve. That's why you worked in the second horizon, to really create proof of things that should move in to the first horizon. And to be able to work with the second horizon, you need insights from the third horizon. And the third horizon is about learning. And there you typically have activity metrics like number of contact with researcher, open question explored, number of ID campaigns, and impact metrics is typically partnership with researchers. It could be number of learnings, number of paper published, etc., etc. Many times I got the question, how should I spend my resources in the first, second, and third horizon? There is no one single answer to that question, but let's do an experiment. Let's say that we invest everything we have in the first horizon. Then the company will end up in a declined market. It might take a day, it might take 1,000 years, but it is a kind of an axiom that everything ends. Civilization, people, animal, companies, even countries. So if we can believe in that axiom, then we can say that recreating yesterday every new day by only working with improvement based on the past will not lead that you survive over time. So that is one extreme. And the other extreme is to spend everything you have just on learning. So you need to find a balance to risk mitigate. Based on our experience, approximately 10% of your budget for working with improvement and innovation should be spent on improvement in the first horizon. And approximately 20% should be spent on finding out new way, understanding the unknown. And the majority, 60%, should be spent on prototyping, testing, piloting. By doing that, you will end up with finding the new S-curves in the first horizon. The 20% is improvement. It is not running the business in itself. It is what you put on top of that. That's also a very common misunderstanding that, well, we should only put 20% on running operation. No, the operational expenses are there. And you should put on top of that 20% to refine and improve, and 20% on learning, and 60% to really test out what will happen and learn. And based on that, you can make very thoughtful and insights-driven, actually data-driven decisions, leading to less risk and a better competitive position on the market. Managing innovation over the first, second and third horizon call for an innovation process and a governance system. Based on current thinking and data we collected from all over the world from more than 100 organizations, we've been able to iron out a tangible innovation process. And I will walk that through with you step by step, starting with the first step, which is to understand the capability, the leadership, and the culture of your organization. That is the responsibility of the management team. And you need to make sure that you build and align with the strategy of the organization, being able to deliver on the intent of the organization. Typically, you use assessment tools for that. For instance, you can use in a survey, or you can create your own assessment. The most important is that you do assess the scene and do understand the scene and make sure that you find the gaps and close them. The second step is about direction. And for that you typically have an innovation board that link the strategy of the organization with strategic initiatives in the first, second and the third horizon. These initiatives are typically linked to campaigns. And there are two types of campaigns. There is like explicit campaigns where you run email campaigns or you run hackathons, workshops, focus groups, or they could be implicit campaigns like field studies, or it could be involving client or customers or contractors, vendors, partners in co-creation sessions. And based on the campaigns, you will be able to collect a number of IDs. When you collect IDs, you have a need of grouping them. Typically, you collect pretty many IDs, and typically it gets out of control. So you need to group them. We call that clusters. And this is the iterative process where you group IDs and you regroup IDs and you put up hypotheses and experiments based on this group or cluster of IDs, where you try things out and learn and regroup, refine hypotheses, and eventually you reject or accept the hypothesis based on the number of experiments and the number of grouping of IDs and regrouping of IDs. And at a certain point, you can make a decision, and that is typically a task for the innovation board. This first part we call exploration. The second part is execution. When you decided to go into a project, then you had to appoint someone responsible for that. And there is two things that should be done. It's development and it is commercialization. You typically appoint the project leader, and you typically identify if it's a product in the first, second or third horizon, because it's very different characteristics, and the outcome, the expected outcome, is also different. So recall that the outcome from the third horizon is learning or insights, and the second, data, and the first is actually cash. So you appoint a leader, you make sure that you label the project in the right way, so you have the right kind of expectation and the right team. So you need more explorative team and a more explorative leadership style if you go for H3 or H2 than you have need of when you go with H1. And I will actually take that one step further. Imagine you appoint a very experimental project leader for H1 project. That will not do. There you need someone that is very structured, working step by step. While if the aim is actually to gain insight and knowledge, you might have a more open-minded project leader. Same goes with the team. So the first phase of the innovation process is strategic direction. The second one is learning, which is partly to gain ideas, to explore. And the second part of the learning is about grouping and decision making. Then you have the third phase, the growth and value phase, where we actually develop and deploy and create the value of the projects.